All right, welcome aboard, everybody. It is CI Acceleration. Welcome aboard, finding the owner, locking up the property. We're going to have a great session tonight. So first and foremost, a couple of housekeeping things. One, welcome aboard. So if you're here and you see either the chat or the question panel, feel free to ask a question to chat. If you're chatting, it's going to come directly to us, I believe. And if you do a question, you should have that as part of your control panel where you can pop out and ask a question. I know that Thomas Brady asked a question. Do any of you have a seller questionnaire that you use when you speak with your potential sellers? The answer is yes, we do. So I just want to make sure that you all know that we're seeing your questions. We are going to be joined in a few minutes by another one of our members here. Her name is Stephanie, but I'm joined by Jenny and Dana. So welcome aboard, ladies. Thank you so much for joining me. How are you tonight?
Hey, everyone. Doing great tonight, Craig. Hope you are.
Fantastic. Real quick question. If you all can see our camera and the PowerPoint, type 1 in either the question or the chat. I just want to make sure that you're seeing it. We're fairly new to this platform. Yeah, good. Thank you all very, very much. I see those ones coming through. So good stuff. All right, so you can see all of our pretty faces. All right, well, tonight we're going to talk about finding the owner and locking up the property. We're going to do it in the context of PIN. We're going to talk a little bit about our experiences and how we've used PIN, but we're going to be sharing with you some ways to connect with the owners and some really cool techniques that PIN helps us use in order to connect with those potential sellers. Let me get my PowerPoints going here. Hopefully we get to see all the good stuff. All right, so tonight we are talking about finding the owner and locking up the property. A couple weeks back, we talked about finding great deals. You can find all of these as a replay in the Success Center. And if one of you gals would remind me before the end of our session tonight to go to that and show everybody where that is. Anybody that has PIN, you'll be able to access the Success Center. Anybody that has an account, a free account, you will also have access to the Success Center. So I'll show you all where that is. That was a couple weeks ago. Last week we talked about deal or no deal, which is, how do you look at PIN? How do you look at a piece of, look at a property and understand what you've got in front of you? And then next week we're going to talk about how do you make money in real estate? What are the primary ways to cash in? How do you make it through the different exit strategies? So good stuff there. All right.
Be sure to tune into that one. It's all about
definitely.
Money, right?
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. So, one of the things that we always mention is this: if you have legal questions, I'm not an attorney. I don't believe Dana or Jenny is either. Real quickly, nope. Yes, no, maybe. Do you need an attorney? Do you like an attorney? What are your thoughts about it, real quick?
Well, I didn't have one when I started, but it definitely was a plus having one whenever I needed to get any legal questions answered. When I was ready to close that property, I got an attorney. But initially starting out, you do not need an attorney, but you do want to establish some relationships with some good ones.
I would recommend anytime there's money involved, it's always nice to have an attorney vet through whatever that contract looks like. And the beauty of PIN is inside of that, they have what's called contract genies. You have access to law depots and contracts that are tried and vetted for every state across the U.S. So you do have those at your fingertips. They have been approved and vetted by local attorneys in those areas. So that is one great starting point. And then obviously when you go to close on a property, whether you're in a title state or in a closing attorney state, you will be working directly with attorneys as well too. So they can also put eyes on your contracts to make sure they're on the up and up.
That's right. Dana, great question. How do you find a real estate attorney?
So I asked. I was fortunate enough to have a mentor early on. And so I was asking those questions not only to my mentor, but other investors in the area because I had no real estate experience. So I needed to find a good attorney to close on my deals. And so that's where I found my answers. And I also got involved with my local REI. And a lot of those questions that I had initially were answered right in those rooms. And so to get connected with like-minded individuals, people who are actually out there doing the work, you want to get involved in those types of organizations and or groups that are part of real estate investing.
Yeah, I love that. Awesome. All right. So if you are on the call tonight and you have PIN, now there's a few poll questions. I don't know if anybody, what's that?
I said, you lucked up.
Oh, well, yeah. If you're here tonight, you don't have PIN. I hope that by the end of our session that you'll be really interested in it. We're going to have a couple of these. We're going to show you how to get there, but we have a free trial right now. It's a 7-day period of time where you can kind of take a peek at it. If you'll go to the connectedinvestors.com/PIN-software, you can sign up right there for a free trial. Yeah, so I hope you don't mind me sharing this, but I've used Legal Shield for 10 years and had so much luck I became a rep. They review my contracts. Very cool. Is that, I don't know if that's Katie or
That's
Kathy.
awesome.
So thank you for sharing that. So yeah, it's important to have an attorney in your back pocket. Hey, Stephanie, welcome aboard. We're going to stop and say hi. Hey, Stephanie, how are you?
Hey, Steph.
How are you guys?
We're
Fantastic.
wonderful. How are you?
Doing really well. I'm excited to be
Okay.
here as always.
Awesome. Hey, James, a great question. We had a program at one point in time. We're currently maxed out on new students, so we're on hold right now for a mentoring program. But if that's something that you're interested in, you could certainly send an email to support@connectedinvestors.com and just indicate that you are interested. There might be something coming down the road where we open up some more spots, but as of right now, we're just maxed out. Yeah, so if you need PIN, definitely join us. And I think that I said this, but I don't remember. Wherever you're from tonight, let us know. You guys can be anywhere. It's Tuesday, and you can literally be anywhere in the world. And we would love to know where you're from so that we can just get a sense of how many amazing folks are with us tonight around the country. So please pop that in there. Thank you. I love that. Oh, look at that. Boston and Phoenix and Virginia, all over the place. Houston. I'm going to be in Houston in a few days. Woo! Awesome. Kansas, Dallas, awesome. Everywhere. I love that. Thank you all so much for sharing with where you're from. All right. So we're talking about finding the owner and locking up the property. And what I want to do is let's keep it in the context of PIN, right? So we know that there's a lot of different ways to connect with the owner. And what I'd like to do is just go right around the horn here with all three of you gals. What's your favorite way to reach out and connect with an owner? Jenny, go first.
You know, my favorite way, honestly, is toggling from auction properties and going into PIN and skip tracing them and reaching out directly to the homeowner because I can access their contact information. So for me, that has been the best way for me to get in touch with those folks. I'm not opposed to any of the other methods. I definitely have done postcards. I actually have done some door knocking a little bit too, but my personal preference is calling them or actually more or less texting them. It's direct access, easy communication, and then they can choose to respond to me or not. But that's my preferred method.
I love that. So yeah, like Johnny Hill here, our buddy on the phone, you like to pick up that telephone and make a call. I love that. Stephanie, welcome aboard. What is your preferred method to connect with your potential sellers?
Sure, yeah. So we've had a lot of success with both VA cold callers. So we've had an external team calling our PIN leads, and then sending my internal team of warm leads. And we've also had success with mailers. So we've actually hit some pretty big deals with mailers, thanks to Dana urging us on to give it a try.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Yeah. So what we're showing you here is there's different ways to connect with the owners. Stephanie said that's Dana. So Dana, you're like the postcard queen. So tell us a little bit about that. And how does PIN help you with that?
So I absolutely love the postcards, and that's what I initially started out with from the very beginning, and we continue to send out postcards. But I was able to access PIN and pull some lists. And so from there, we started writing our own postcards. We were handwriting our own postcards for the first 18 months of me running my business. We then we allow another company now that does our postcards, but for the time I've been in business, we've been doing the postcards. We also do what Stephanie does, is the agent outreach. We like to send out those texts and make contact with some agents in the area, as well as making phone calls today. But I've also done driving for dollars. I've knocked on doors. I'm not opposed to any of these methods. The point is that you get in, find the contact information, and get a hold of the owner of those properties. That's the main thing here.
Yeah, no, I love that. So the idea is that, you know, when you're trying to do deals, you don't do a deal in a vacuum, right? You don't do a deal with the house. You do the deal with the owner of the property. And so what PIN provides all of our members is we have 43,000 plus zip codes across the country. And we provide skip tracing as part of the PIN service. So when you're looking at a property on one of the cards or through a list, we're actually going to show you that you can skip trace that property, that you can get the contact information. I'll actually show that to you. But once you get that information, now you've got to decide, hey, how am I going to connect with them? So whether that's an email or a text or calling them directly or doing some door knocking, driving around, maybe developing a map using PIN to help you identify some properties that are in the same area. So the idea is that with PIN, you have the ability to pick and choose how you want to connect with these folks. I personally am a huge fan of cold calling, right? Dana, because of her postcards, she needs mailing addresses. She doesn't need property addresses. She needs mailing addresses.
That's
So
right.
PIN will give you the property address, but also the owner's address, especially if it's that vacant property, which is very, very popular, right? You know, so in terms of connecting with the owner, it's important that you have a resource that will give you those leads and then give you the ability to connect. So great question, Katia. I hope I'm saying that right. Do you send letters in addition to postcards? Absolutely. Letters is absolutely another great way to connect with an owner. And because
In addition,
go ahead.
she asked if we sent, well, I don't know if who she was addressing this to, but for me, I do not send letters in addition to the postcards. I will continue to send postcards until I get a response or get the, what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
So
Well,
Greg, combination. So I do multi-touch campaigns with the company that I utilize. And so I typically will send out an initial postcard, and then I usually do a text and an email, and then I will do sometimes a follow-up postcard or a follow-up letter. So that's all part of the campaign that I put out there.
Campaigns.
Awesome. Yeah. Stephanie, and you do a series of different things, right? So you do a bunch of different types of marketing. Share how PIN helps you with that.
Sure. So PIN helps me. Can you hear me a little bit better now?
Yeah, I know your voice is a little scratchy. I think you're okay now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I use a bunch of different methodologies. I use PIN. So again, I aggregate huge lists of data, right? And the data is then sent over to an external cold calling company. That VA cold calling company has people offshores, overseas. They actually call on our behalf, and that way that my team, when the leads come in, they're just warm leads for us, right? Someone hopefully has already touched them, and when we call them back, they have some sort of they're definitely interested in selling, right? Or so it's supposed to be. Even that is very hit or miss, right? So we do that. We take a lot of the data from PIN, and it's been fantastic because it takes about 10,000 leads to keep them fed, if you will, and PIN's a great source of that for us.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. Awesome. Another question. Yeah, there was a bit of an echo there. Sorry about that. We're little minor technical difficulties. So maybe I'm not sure if you're on headphones or you have a microphone, but maybe I don't know if you can try to reconnect. But anyway, thank you, Bruce, about that training. I will make sure that if anybody that wants it, it's actually going to be in the Success Center, and I'll show you where all that is here in just a second. So awesome. So let's go to the next page. So we talked a little bit about the ways. Oh, right. So let me give you a quick snapshot of PIN, just from an image standpoint. Inside of PIN, when you're looking at either the property card or the list view, you have the ability of tracking down that contact information. And you know what? I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to jump off of the slides, and I'm going to go to the actual computer. So let me see if I can remember how to stop seeing my screen, which is this one. And let me hit escape. And let's go into PIN. So now let's see, share my screen. And we should be seeing something else. Let me go with, let's see, where's my screen here?
Come on, you got this, Craig.
I'll get it eventually. Are there any good questions in here that anybody wants? Sorry about this, guys. My apologies. I can't, this control panel. Let me make it, where'd it go? So my screen, what are my audiences seeing? They're seeing this, but I want you guys to see this. So I think this is right now. I don't know.
In the meantime, do we have any
Yeah,
deals
anybody
that
want
we're
to ask?
working on? Girls, women, ladies?
Any deals we're working on? We've always got deals we're working on, Steph. Are you
That's
kidding
right.
me?
Absolutely.
Anything good from PIN that's come up lately that we could talk about while we're troubleshooting?
So funny you should ask. Dana and I are actually right now working on doing a JV partnership in Canton, Georgia. It's on a pre-foreclosed property. We had to negotiate. We went in and renegotiated the purchase price of the property. We're taking over subject to also
That's
paying up
right.
capital because there's an equity differential there. But we were able to pick up a mortgage rate at 3.6%, and we'll turn around. It's not totally a turn property. It's going to take probably about a month to rehab, and then we'll get that puppy back up on the market. So fun little joint venture that we're embarking upon.
Yes. We got
Awesome.
it for a
Thank you for sharing
great
that.
price.
All right,
Yeah.
we're back. Technical difficulties over. Thank you all. Sweating up a little bit, but I'm good. We go live, and when we're live, you know, sometimes little technical things happen. So we're looking at PIN right now. So I don't know if you haven't seen PIN. This is our interface. What I wanted to share with you really quickly is the property card. So when you're looking at, you know, doing a search, what will happen is over on the right-hand side here, you're going to see all of these different properties. Now, I'm not picking any specific property. I'm just going to grab any property, and I'll just click it. And when I click on it, this is what we get to see. So we see the property card. Now on the property card, and I'll try to make it a little bit bigger, you get all information about the actual property itself. So the way that we do it is you do a search based on a certain property deal type. So whether that's, you know, vacant or pre-foreclosure or, you know, probates. And then you'll get a result. And we already kind of went through that, but what will happen is you'll be looking at one of these cards, and now you kind of want to go through and figure out, well, I want to connect with these folks because we've already looked at it. We've already said, hey, you know, it looks like it could be a good opportunity. I want to reach out to them. So the best part is on the card, all you simply do is scroll down. So you've got the card chosen. You're going to scroll down, and you're looking for the owner profile information right here. So the owner will then list information that we have about the property and about the owner. I won't speak it out loud, but you can see there's a couple of telephone numbers. We've got an email address. We have the owner's mailing address. This is very valuable. This mailing address is exactly where you want to send any kind of mail or anything because that's where they live. If you send it to the property address on a vacant, it's going to sit in a pile of vacant mail or it won't even get delivered. So we want to make sure that we're sending it to the mailing address. So as far as being able to connect with the owner, here's all you need: their name, their phone number, an email, their mailing address. We have information about the property, whether it's a owner occupied or not. We also have something called the skip trace detail, which when you click on it, will open up another screen and it will give you some additional information. You could take it and export it out if there's more information here. But let me show you a really powerful one. So with PIN, we have what's called the property card and the list view. Inside of the list view, we have all of this amazing data. I know that Jenny loves the list view. She talks about that quite a bit. But what we're going to do is we're going to scroll all the way over. And what we're looking for is we're looking for this phone column right here. When you are going down the list, and let me just click on a page deeper in to see if I can find some telephones, you're going to see the little phone icon, but I guess I must have, this is an area of interest that I've had, so a lot of these have already been skip traced. But the idea is you'll see a little telephone icon, and when you do it, you just simply click it right here on the list, and it'll actually generate a result. Now, if you've got a list of 1,500 leads, Dana, do you want to go through and skip trace all 1,500? I know you used to, didn't you?
No, you do not. That's why I'm laughing. I mean, I would sit here for hours just clicking through, skip tracing all of these properties. But today you don't have to. So
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to.
Yeah, exactly. So if you have a relatively small list, maybe 10 or 15 numbers, it's okay. Go ahead and click them by hand.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's really, it's not efficient. So what we did was we provided you with a bulk skip trace option. So right now we've got 1,500 leads. All I simply do, if I want to get all the names and numbers and everything I can, is I select the top row, and it's going to automatically select all of the leads, all of the listings. Then I'm going to go up to this, up here, there's something called the export all files. When I click on it, Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a quick name. And then I'm going to either do one of two things. If it was a small list, I only had maybe a couple dozen names and numbers, I'm going to skip trace it by hand and I'm going to export it immediately. Now, if I don't need phone numbers and maybe I just want the property addresses, then all I have to do is just export the property data. But if I want to get that skip trace, if I want to get that contact information, I'm going to hit export property and contact data. That's going to do a bulk skip trace. And then what will happen is within 24 to 48 hours, we ask for 48 hours, but typically it's within, a few hours, you're going to get that list. It'll come back to you. When you do it, you hit export property and contact data. You'll have a couple little things that says you understand, maybe even like a little video to watch about skip tracing. And then when it's ready, it'll go from pending to download. Pretty slick, right? And then I'll take that list. It's a .csv file. I download it. I can open it up, play with it. I can take the CSV file and put it into a third-party system. A lot of different things with it. But this is all of those properties now have been skip traced, and now I'm ready to go forward, whether it's a cold call, a mailing list, etc. And let me look at the questions real quickly because I had that panel kind of went crazy there for a second, and I didn't see if anybody else had asked any more questions. Yeah, there's a couple, but I don't dare.
Yeah.
I don't dare move it because I can't see the screen. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, so that's the skip tracing, and that's how you can basically reach out to them. You can also there's one other thing inside of the property card. So when you're looking at an individual address, sometimes you'll go through the skip trace process and no information will pop up, and that. There's a lot of different reasons why that happens, but when it does happen, we also provide you with some additional ability to reach out to the owners. So let me just click on one property, get the card open, and I'll show you that there's a second and third sort of skip trace that's available, and it's right here. So on the very bottom, we have two additional sources. We have source 1 and source 2. They're the fast people search and white pages. So if you still can't get a name or a number, or maybe the numbers haven't come out right, you can always go to source 1 and source 2. So yeah, pretty cool. There we go. Let's see. So now I'm going to jump over to and see if I can pull this question out because I want to see if there's any more questions. So let's see. So somebody was sent a list this morning but wasn't able to download the information. Is there any way I can find that again? I'm not sure, Ernesto, what you mean by you were sent a list. Yeah, I couldn't say.
If it was through its exports, it should be in its exports.
I mean, if you got a message that said, hey, your skip trace list is ready, then yeah, all you're simply going to do is go into a list view, and then you're going to go to the list view. You're going to go over to your exports, and then it should be somewhere in here, would be my guess. Yeah,
that's right.
So I think that you're going to, again, you should see that list. If you find that you're stuck and you can't find it, just reach out to the support at connectedinvestors.com, and they'll walk you through how to get there. But it's probably where it is. Right. Next question. How do we sort through inaccuracies? I've found property marked as vacant unpinned that I know is not vacant, properties missing unpinned that I know are vacant, several properties that have a significant negative ARV. So Jenny or Dana or Stephanie, did you all want to sort of talk about how when you're using the software, how do you confront that? How do you handle that?
Sure. I mean, can you hear me a little bit better now?
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. So, I would say that when you're doing anything with big data, right, there's going to be inaccuracies. Nothing's perfect. It doesn't matter if you're using PIN, PropStream, going to aggregate that data yourself, right? So all data is imperfect, and you should just go into that with that notion, right? So always double check. If you feel that something's incorrect, go to a different source, right? Double check, and that's just how this works, right? So it's not that PIN's no good. It's not that all the data is bad. It just means that some of the data is hard to aggregate, and it might not all be correct. And things are ever changing, right? It's not instantaneous. So if someone moves into a property, PIN doesn't necessarily know immediately, or if they move out, they don't necessarily know immediately. So I think that's just how you have to approach big data in general, and you're going to come up against that quite frequently, no matter the data source.
I love that stuff. And just to add to that real quickly, because all data is not 100%, it then gives you the opportunity. I love what Craig says about becoming an investigator. And so you may have to do a little bit more digging, which then just makes you an overall better investor. And so while it's not 100% here in PIN, you may be, like Stephanie said, you look outside of PIN, do your own due diligence, find the information in order to get in contact with that seller.
I'll add one more comment. When we're talking about vacant properties, keep in mind
Yeah.
too, vacant properties come up a lot of times. If you happen to be a landlord, maybe it's a second home for somebody, maybe it's a long-term rental, short-term rental, or a midterm rental. So I know me in particular, I've got a few of those, and you better believe I have people send me postcards. They call me all the time saying, "Hey, are you willing to sell your property?" Because it's pulling a vacant according to the United States Postal Service, because I stopped my mail from being delivered to that address. So it technically shows as vacant, but obviously I am a landlord and I'm renting those properties. So please know, even though it might say vacant, again, the data is only as good as where we're aggregating that information from. And in that case, it's typically the USPS. So just keep some of those things in mind, and don't, there's, like Craig said, there's 43,000 zip codes. So if you get stumped on a couple of those, just move on to the next 1,000. It's not that big of a deal.
I love that, Jen.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so a couple of you have been asking, how do we find some of the resources? It's one of the questions that you've asked. It's actually part of the next part of our conversation. We want to talk a little bit, okay, now that you've connected with them, we want to talk a little bit about how do you handle that conversation. Before we get there, though, we do have some resources. So inside of PIN, you would go to the Success Center, which is that graduation cap, and then you're looking for the category called Applying PIN to Your Business. In there, once you go there, you're going to find all of these different resources. So there's the data guide, the cold calling script, the working with motivated sellers, all different scripts and documents that you will need as you're going through this process. So again, Success Center, Applying PIN to Your Business, and then pick one of these. We're actually kind of talking, whoops, went a little too fast. We're really talking about the cold calling and the working with the motivated sellers tonight. Awesome. So that's where you find it. Now, let's talk a little bit about actually connecting with the owner and having an actual conversation with that person. When you're approaching a motivated seller, here's just one piece of advice. The way that I've always thought about it is they need you more than you need them. And what I mean by that is if you go in thinking, oh, I've got to get a deal, I got to get a deal, I got to get a deal, I need a deal, you become kind of desperate. You just are, right? And so because of that, what we want to do is we kind of want to switch our mindset to say, hey, I want to see who I can help today. And that's how I sort of preface the whole thing. All right. So how do you approach a seller? How do you talk to a motivated seller? We've got 3 amazing gals on the call tonight, so we're going to dive into that. So there's some things that I thought were really important. And what I'd like to do is, first thing is I'm going to take the first one. I believe that if you're fairly new in this business and you've not done a lot of cold calling or you've not done a lot of conversations about things that maybe you don't have a lot of knowledge, in my opinion, the easiest way to learn how to talk about real estate is to engage in real estate conversations, even if you don't know them that well. And the easiest way to know them a little bit better is initially to follow some form of a script. Now, whoever was on our call on last Thursday got a real treat. There was a bonus session. It should have been one session, but it was a cold calling session. And I go through great detail actually how to go through that call. But for tonight, I just want to talk about a few things that'll help you lock up a deal. Because remember, you're not doing a deal with a house, you're doing a deal with a person. So in my opinion, you've got to follow a script initially, just like an actor, right? All actors, they get a script. They know what the plot is. They know what their next line is. They know where everything is supposed to be. Then they kind of maybe ad lib or improvise, but they always follow the script initially. And so we provide scripts. Stephanie, when you're talking with your because you do a lot of work with realtors. Pick one of these things and tell me which one helps you the most with that realtor to get that deal done.
Yeah, so, I think being real and authentic, right? So
Okay.
I can be a little caustic, or I think you've called me confrontational. No, but I'm probably that too. Um, and I think
I
that
never
that's
said that.
okay then. Um, contrarian, sorry, contrarian. But I
Contrarian.
think that it's okay, right? That's who I am. That's my personality. And being real and authentic with the person that you're talking about or talking to builds rapport, simply because that's who you are, right? You're not putting on a front. And I think people can see through that. So that's one of the most important things for me is being real and authentic.
Yeah.
I love that.
Dana,
I,
I know that you love rapport. So talk a little bit about how you build rapport.
So, well, I was going to talk a little bit about being real and authentic as well, because I do believe it's important. That's going to get you in, people are going to see through any kind of bull that you're trying to put forth
Yeah.
if you're trying to get a deal. But if you go in with the mindset of really wanting to help another individual and you're real about it, people can pick up on that energy. And so that helps me to build rapport any day of the week, any and every day. I've been accused of staying on the phone way too long with sellers because I deal direct to sellers. And so I let them tell their stories. And I mean, we just experienced that, Jenny and I, when with our most recent deal together, our joint venture. And I had to listen to a lot and cut through and realize that this person was hurting. This person was going through something, is going through something. And so was able to build that rapport as well. So where we got the deal under contract. And also showing compassion to their stories. And so I think every one of these are important, but being real and authentic and building that rapport, because it enables me at any time during our deal together or working together, will allow me to go back, and if we need to restructure the deal or if we need to talk about numbers, we are able to do that because we built that rapport. And something you always share, and I know a lot of you have probably heard this on the line, people like to work with people they know, like, and trust. And so I've had a huge success at, even when I don't know everything, I don't need to know everything. Showing up, being real, building that rapport, showing compassion, that's what gets me the deals.
Yeah. So Jenny, we've talked about rapport and showing compassion and empathy and all of that, being real. How do you approach the call? I mean, I know that you're using all of these things, but how do you, because now you got the lead, you're wanting to have a conversation. How do you approach them?
Yeah, for me, Craig, honestly, my sweet spot truly is working with those in pre-foreclosure. So they are in a financial predicament. So that second to last one, offering to help them. They are in they're in a bind, and I am there to offer a win-win solution. What does that look like? I truly don't know. Can I give them all cash? Maybe so. Can we be creative? Can we talk through different options? Maybe I could take over their existing mortgage payments, subject to, maybe we could structure it some way that it's still a win for them and they don't end up losing their house, because if they can't forego the pre-foreclosure process, their property is going to auction. They're going to lose everything. They're going to lose their home, the roof over their head. They're going to get a black mark against their credit. So if I can circumvent that whole process, you better believe I am there to offer them help. Of course, I'm also a businesswoman. I'm still there to, make a profit as well. But at the end of the day, I want to make sure that I'm trying to help them first and foremost. So I love, and all of these approaches, they go hand in hand, right? I'm being compassionate. I'm showing empathy.
Right.
And I'm also being real and authentic at the end of the day as well. And it's also honestly asking the right questions, right? Letting them talk. People love talking about themselves. So it's just knowing when to sit back and actually be an active, not a passive listener, an active listener. But you've got to ask the right questions to entice and solicit the responses.
Yeah. So, yeah, I love that. What I want to do, there's a couple of questions. So We're going to jump back into PIN in a second. Hopefully it doesn't take me as long to go back again, but I'll show you all where the postcards are. Now, we don't provide the postcards. It's actually through an affiliate called Go Big Printing. So we have a link that if you have an account, you click on the link and it goes right to Go Big Printing and it'll connect you real quickly. So we have that. The question about buyability score, would you approach differently according to buyability score? Dana, what are your thoughts about the buyability score and how do you approach it?
You know, the viability is not written in stone. And so until you've had a conversation with that seller, you're not going to, know. And so, I remember spending hours looking at all of this information and basing whether or not I would call someone on a viability score. No, if that property is vacant, I know it's an absentee owner, chances are he may want to sell, he or she. And so it's just a starting point. It's data that's there to help you to know the likelihood of a seller selling to you at a discount, but it's not written in stone. And so until you talk to that seller, that for me, that viability score means nothing until I have a conversation.
Yeah. So, but let me expand on that a little bit, Dana. And the reason,
Sure.
part of the reason that we're going to expand is the viability score is there for a reason. And I think that the way that depending upon what kind of business you're running, you may only be looking for certain kinds of properties, like very specific certain kinds of properties. Some folks take more of like a shotgun approach because they're playing the numbers game, rightfully so. The viability score is a way for, at a quick glance, to get a sense of which properties have more motivating factors than others. So what does that mean? Well, if a property is in pre-foreclosure and it's vacant and it is, got a high viability, it was an absentee owner, that kind of a thing. There's 4 or 5 things that are now attached to that property in terms of motivations. And there could be one property that just has absentee owner. Well, the absentee owner one is probably only going to get a lower score, and the one that has more motivations will have a higher score. And what happens is, if you're going through a lot of leads, because like what, Stephanie, 10,000, and that viability becomes important and you need to get it down. Maybe you've got 20,000, but you only need 10. Then you would use something like the viability to identify the properties that are the ones that are the most likely to sell based on the information. But that doesn't mean that the guy that's an absentee owner doesn't want to sell. So I think to really emphasize what Dana's saying, it's not important up front whether it's a high or low score. It's more of a filtering option to help you separate and create the right kind of buckets of properties. If you only got 100 leads or 200 leads in a small rural area, call them all, regardless of the viability score. So I know that was a lot to say about it, but it is a question that we get quite a bit. I like it. Quick glance, it says, man, anything 30, 40, 50, that in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, there's some good motivation. So those are the ones that I'm naturally going to go to, but I still like them all. Dana.
Initially when I started, I got caught on those viabilities and I would analyze and analyze and analyze. And you don't want to get stuck analyzing a property that has a high viability only to find out that they don't want to sell. And so I think that's what I take into consideration today, that I know today anywhere in there property can sell, if the owner is open to selling that property, high viability or low.
And I think that's one of the most important points to drill home to anyone that's listening, right? Especially those that haven't reached out, is that PIN is amazing, but it's how do you approach a motivated seller, right? You have to approach them. You must speak to them. You must mail them. It does not matter what the data says, right? And just because it says vacant and it's not vacant, that also doesn't make it not a lead, right? Because you're really looking for anyone that wants to sell their property to you. So I think that's just the most important part. And that's something that a trap, if you will, when you see huge data sets or all this information that I think so many, both of our students, just users of PIN get trapped in. And I don't want that for the people watching.
I agree.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love that. That's really good. Yeah, it's so easy to sort of judge the book by its cover, to get overwhelmed, to spend all this time. And then just like Dana said, you get there 10 seconds later, nope, and they're hanging up the phone on you. So yeah, you got to play that.
You got a high viability score though.
Yeah, I know you, but you were vacant. Yeah, So, and I'll say one other thing, just kind of as a point of reference. You got to find leads, right? In my opinion, if you don't have leads, you don't have a business, right? Every business needs warm bodies exchanging dollars or whatever. And so this business is about you getting in front of enough people, right? They say, oh, I only want to look at the best people. Okay, well, then just go with high viability. I'm not going to limit. What I would say is you wouldn't have this information if you didn't have PIN in the first place. So the fact that a property shows up as not vacant anymore, it is the nature of the beast. But if a property was vacant at some point in time, that's a motivating factor, especially if it was an investor and the property's not renting, or maybe it's a second home, or maybe they inherit it. Now it's just sitting there vacant. We don't know. So any indication that there's potential motivation, that's the beautiful part. All right. So there was one other question that said, oh, I already answered that one. It's about the postcards, right? So, and let me scroll down a little bit. Do you make, Stephanie, you answer this one. Do you make offers without walking a property? And if so, how do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, we try not to make offers without walking a property. We'll give roundabouts. So typically what I say is I'll run the numbers on something, and then barring any major issues, essentially, I'll say low, mid, or high to make sure I'm on the same page as the person I'm offering to, whether that's the seller or an agent. So for instance, if I know the information, I'm looking at PIN, I'm kind of looking at the rehab score. I have a sense maybe of what that property looks like. I look at Google Maps, Google Earth, right, look at the front of it, etc. And then I run my numbers, and if my buy price is, 237 is my max acceptable offer, or my MAO, then I'm going to tell that seller, hey, listen, I'm in the low twos. Is that something that you'd entertain, right? That's making sure that we're on the same page. And then I will actually firm it up after walking it. If you don't have the luxury of walking it and they just want an offer, because sometimes, so you'll see a lot of like one call closes is kind of what it is. And so you actually, big sales teams will close the lead in the first call. And obviously they're not walking it. They're just putting it under contract, and they're doing their due diligence in their inspection period. So that's for a pretty sharp and savvy salesperson, of course. But that is a methodology too. So you have it locked up. So you're certainly not wasting your time when you go out there, because you have a vested interest in the property. So you can do it both ways. Before your inspection period is up, someone better be going into that property, be it you, someone on your team, or your end buyer if you're wholesaling it.
Perfect. Love it. There was one other question that I was going to answer. Eddie, you said, do I have the option to ask questions in this webinar? You just did. So go for it. If you have more questions, go for it. You don't send email directly from PIN. You just grab the email address. So if a property has a viability score of 3, it's probably just one little factor, but it's a lead. So don't worry about the viability score. Give them a call. Again, if you've got 10,000 leads and you got a bunch of 3s, call the good one. I mean, call the higher numbers. But eventually you're going to want to reach out to them all, because you really just don't know until you have a conversation. All right. So let's pivot back to this conversation. So we talked about asking the right questions, and I think that there are 4 questions that you need to know. This is my personal opinion. And what I will say is, if you can get two or three of these 4 questions, you're going to be fine. You really only need one of them, although, maybe 1.5. So there's 4 questions that you got to ask. They are very simple. Why are you considering selling? Period. Like, why? Now, when I'm saying why, I'm not asking for every single little detail, but I just kind of need to understand what's motivating them, right? So Jenny, when you're talking to folks about selling, how much time do you spend in this, like the why part of it? How does that help you?
I actually don't spend a ton of time in the why part. I actually, at the end of the day, I ultimately don't actually care why they're selling. I just want to know, how do we basically make this a win-win solution, no matter really what your reasons are. So the underlying reason doesn't matter, but the fact that PIN is providing all those motivations to us and we can see what they are, it kind of helps us go in with the right mindset when we are approaching them for that initial conversation.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I agree. Now, when I say why are they selling, also, it's really a matter of, what's like, is there a problem? Is it vacant and costing you money? Are you really in pre-foreclosure? So the why part of it isn't so much about like their personal mission. It's more about what's really driving them to ultimately make the decision. Well, the cool part is with PIN, you already kind of know what that is, especially if it's probate, pre-foreclosure, vacant. You have a general sense of the why part of it, but might as well continue to move forward with that. Now,
And
how much
also, I
you
will just,
go ahead,
the
Steph.
contrarian in me, right? I will say that as I've done more of this, now I push really hard on the why. I want to
Okay.
know why every single time. And so I make my team member go out and try to figure out why. Why do I do that now? I've done enough deals where I know the deals in which I'm probably going to close them. So if I don't know the motivation behind it, or they won't give it up, for instance, I know probate deals, I close at a very high rate, and I close at a very cheap price. And so if I hear that that's the deal motivation, I'm working that deal a lot harder than something that's, oh, it's up in the air, we're just thinking about it, we're tossing it around, right? So if they won't nail it down, I'm like, okay, I don't know how much time I want to expend on this. So that's actually something that's evolved in my business over time.
Yeah, I love that. Next one is how much you hoping to get. Now, I have a unique way of looking at it. My mentor years ago taught me that you go in with the bookends. You get the top and you get the bottom. So what he says is you always go with, hey, what are you hoping to get for it? Now, again, this is sort of a coffee table conversation, but really it's on the phone. But it's that intimate kind of conversation. Hey, what are you hoping to get? And the idea is that you're getting them in their emotional, I want $1 million for my property. On the other side of it, you now need to know what would be the lowest that they would be willing to consider. And so the reason that that's important is if they say 300 or they say 500,000 is what they're hoping to get, but then they say, well, I'd be willing to accept, 450, that's a $50,000 discount right off the top, which means that they're open to the idea of a lower price. They're probably, they probably have some sense of why you're asking that question. They know that there's something wrong. How do you all say it? Jenny, do you use the same phrase? Dana, what do you say?
What are you looking to get? That's
Okay.
usually my question to them. And even when they don't give me an answer, I'll turn it back around on them, depending on how the conversation has gone thus far. It may have been a little playful where we're joking back and forth or what have you. And, if they don't want to answer, come on, it's like me walking into a store and asking the guy at the counter, how much do you want for this soda? You know what you want for your house. I turn it back around on the seller. And well, we were thinking maybe 150, somewhere around there. Okay. And so now we really have a conversation going. So yeah, always listening for those cues and paying attention to how the conversation has gone and what type of, rapport we built.
Yeah. And Jenny, I stepped on your toes there, Jenny. Sorry about that.
No,
I wanted
you're
to
I'm
Jenny
sorry.
and Dana, but
So no, Craig, I actually used your approach. I will say previously, they'd be like, okay, well, you offer, and I usually do this in text, what's your offer? And a lot of times I would just go right in with my numbers and people are like, oh my gosh, you're crazy. Don't waste my time. And so now I basically put it back on them saying, hey, what are you hoping to get? And then their mind is, they have that number. So they throw it out there and then I turn it around again. Well, what's the lowest you'd be willing to consider? And it's amazing
That's
that
right.
completely shifts their state of mind, right? They're now a little bit more open and receptive. And so now when they give me that lowest number, at least they've now opened up that door for communication. And then I'm still probably going to go in even lower than what their lowest number is, 9 times out of 10. But at least now they're open and receptive. They're also vested in this conversation. Because if I send them a number right off the bat, they've already shut the door on me. Like, end of story. They typically don't want to communicate anymore. So the door, at least at that point, is open. And then I get to work my negotiation magic.
yeah,
And I'd like to add one more thing, what Jenny was talking about. I got to see her in action this weekend, hear her actually talking to a seller. And so not only, was she directing, what we could offer, but also giving options. She wants to think outside of the box. And so constantly giving options. And so really drew the seller in. And before we knew it, we had it locked up.
I love that. I love that. That's great. Stephanie, what were you going to share? You're good. Okay, perfect. Good. So then the next one is, when are you wanting to close? And the reason that you got to know this is this will tell you how urgent, how like, yeah, when do you want to make this happen?
Yesterday.
If it's
Oh,
yesterday,
okay.
well,
Well, let me get that contract right out to you.
exactly. Now, if it's 8 months, 10 months, 12 months next year, then we know sort of that their motivation, while, you know, they didn't say no, now we're going to have to play the follow-up game. So the idea is that you got to know, you know, why are you selling? How much they hoping to get? When are you hoping to get it done? And then really, if you don't get this information, you're asking for trouble. So what repairs are needed? You have to get condition. And again, I have kind of a way of saying it that I think, you know, I'm old at school. I'm a little older than everybody on the call here. And so I always kind of come at it with being as like unaggressive and unpushy, but really straightforward. And I just basically say, hey, if you were buying this place yourself today, what's the first thing that you notice? What would be the first thing that you'd say, yeah, we probably should change that? And all I'm trying to get them to do is think the way that someone would be looking at their house would be thinking, because they're thinking, nah, there's nothing wrong. Oh, it's beautiful. But if you say, hey, what would you change? What it does is it puts them, they say, well, you know, maybe the bathrooms, or it's been a while. Does it work every time? Heck no, no. But for me, it allows me to sort of say, hey, what's wrong, without saying, hey, what's wrong? How do you handle that? Who wants to chime in?
I like to ask them. I'm a big fan of saying, hey, what repairs need to be done? I'm pretty direct when I ask that question, right? And especially big ticket items. Tell me about the roof. When was the last time you had your shingles replaced?
Yep.
How about your HVAC system? Gosh, what about the windows? So I'm more curious about those big tickets, and that's really not up for discussion. Is it new? Is it old? Give it to me straight. So
Yep.
I'm usually pretty direct when I'm asking some of those questions.
So you definitely stole the rest of my thunder, which is I say that after. I'll go, okay, well, what about the roof? How about the AC? I would throw it out there like that, like, oh, well, what about that? Tell me about that. You know, if you're in Florida, how much damage? You know, that kind of a thing. So
I love that, because I've taken that from Jenny as well now. I'm asking about those big ticket items, whereas before, when I first started, what are the repairs needed? And I would take it all, just what the seller would tell me, without asking about those big ticket items. And so usually get to a property, well, wait a minute, you didn't tell me it didn't even have an AC. So, but I didn't ask those questions.
right.
Yep, I just focus on the big ticket items for everyone, because honestly, I think asking what repairs are needed, it's a good way. My one agent says to let themselves shoot themselves in the foot. So,
Right.
so basically, you ask them what needs to be done, and then you come in with the hammer, and you're like, oh, so the roof has to be replaced. I have to install all the ductwork for your non-existent HVAC system. Oh, and your sewer is clogged. Oh, okay. Let's
That's
when you
right.
hear it back, it's like, oh, that's pretty big, actually. That's a lot of money.
And so then the next part of it is, you know, here's the truth. If you can get these 4 questions answered, you're prepared to make an offer. You can make an offer. Now, that does not mean they're going to like it. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if you know what they're hoping to get, when they want to do it, what kind of repairs, you can legitimately make an offer. What's great is if you don't know repairs, someone asked a question about the repair level. So in one of our other videos, we talk specifically about the repair effort. It's in there. It's the second week. It's last week, I believe. And I'll show that to you before we end the call, the Success Center. And so there's a bunch of different things that you can look at that can help you estimate repairs. There's things that will help you estimate what they might owe on the property. There's information about the neighborhood, about everything that you're going to need to know in order to make an offer is sitting inside of PIM. These 4 questions, if you get them, you are good to go. Now, do you always set an appointment that first call to see the property?
I rarely ever do, but there are times when the seller really needs to sell, and you have to move quickly. But rarely do I set an appointment first call. We usually do it. I let them know after gathering all the information, we're going to do a quick analysis of the property and get back to you within 24 to 48 hours. That's when I'm running my numbers. That's when I'm figuring out what they've given me as opposed to what I can offer will work. We can meet somewhere in the middle, and I'm getting back to them as quickly as possible. And it's usually less than 24 hours where we're making that offer. And if everybody agrees, then we set the appointment. But before then, I was all over the state of North Carolina without making offers and get there and find out they want retail. So it's important to establish some kind of price that both you and the seller would agree on.
I do ask, I will say that I don't say like set an appointment. I mean, unless it's a great deal and I know it's a great deal, then yes, of course. But if it's a, I do ask about access always though, because that matters. So is it going to be really hard? Am I never going to get access because you have tenants in place and they hate you? They're not going to give you access. You're going to have to evict them.
Right.
Okay, well, that also affects my offer. It's going to be way lower.
That's right.
Right. So I do ask to make sure that the access is available, essentially.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. I'm going to show you the Success Center. A lot of the questions that you've all have asked, while they're amazing questions, we've already answered them in some of the other videos. So I'm going to share that with you here in just a second. But there was a question about stacking, and we touched on it in an earlier conversation. But somebody was asking about the probate stacking. But I want you each to share your favorite stack real quickly. What's your favorite stack? What's your property deal type that you like to put in, and everybody can write that down so that when they're in PIN, they can do the same kind of search. So what's your favorite search, Dana?
Vacant absentee.
Okay. Do you want residential, commercial, apartments?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Perfect.
Residential, multi. I've done both. I'm primarily a wholesaler, moving into other strategies. So it really doesn't matter, but primarily I love the vacant absentee owners. I have had a lot of success there. I find that there's a lot less emotional attachment to their properties. But I was in every category: probate, pre-foreclosure, you name it.
Love it. Jenny, what's your favorite stack?
Mine's easy. I'm single family home pre-foreclosure. I don't care about anything else. I don't care about square footage. I don't care about price point. I am the end buyer, so shoot me your deals if you're a wholesaler. So yeah, so that's my buy box. It's very broad.
But single and multi typically, right? Singles and multis, not usually apartments and things like that, right?
Correct. I mean, I would if the numbers were there, great, but I don't intentionally seek those out. Honestly, to me, there's a plethora of just single family pre-foreclosures. That's kind of been our sweet spot.
Love it. Stephanie.
I'm at, so I like, honestly, the vacant absentee owners as well on PIN. I think that's a really good data source, and I think it's pretty reliable. So I would say vacant absentee owner as well. I like 30% more equity because I'm flipping or wholesaling typically. I like single families. I want them to be, I don't like mobile homes, so I exclude those. So it's single family, residential, condo, or townhome. And then that's pretty much it. Square footage doesn't matter to me. But I will say I do like entry price points, so I take that back. So yes, I personally flip deals at the $1 million+ price point. Yeah. But most of the end buyers, and the reason I'm pulling leads en masse is for wholesaling. And so we're looking more entry level. So whatever entry level is in that marketplace, if you're in Florida, I'm looking 500 and under. If I'm in Colorado, I'm probably looking $1 million and under. So those parameters are important to really weed it, to get it a little bit more narrow.
Yeah, love that. Awesome. Yeah, and I'm vacant absentee, 30% equity or greater. A newer filter that I like that just never used before was 3 years. They've owned it for 3 years or longer.
Oh yeah.
It's another filter that we have. We actually showed that to you in one of the other videos. In fact, let me show it to you. So inside of PIN, and the page looks like it's got a little strange coloration there, but you go into the Success Center by clicking the little graduation cap, and then you go into applying PIN to your business. Again, this is where all of the documents are, but here's all of the replays. So the last 2 weeks we'd had the sessions. We had the Finding Great Deals. It's currently inside of week 1, and then week 2 is Deal or No Deal. As of tomorrow, this episode will be sitting there under week 3, so you can go back and watch these.
Awesome.
Yeah. As far as, there was one more question. Contract Genie. Let me just show it to you real quickly, although you will see it in another one of the videos. In PIN, you go up to the My Apps section, which is in the top right-hand corner. When you click on it, it'll open up another window, and we're looking at some different icons. And with the Go Big Printing is the direct mail icon. All you simply do is select it, and then it will take you to, and I don't know if this page will show up. Yep, looks like it's going to. It'll say welcome print, and then bring me right into Go Big Printing. So it's pretty slick. And then I have the option of choosing all different postcards and letters and, different, just everything, all kinds of really cool types of direct marketing. They're a good bunch of guys and gals over there. They do really good stuff. So that's where the postcards come from. So one of the questions was how many calls. I think it was Candy that asked or not Katia asked how many calls. Like, so you reached out to somebody and now you've had a first conversation. Do you ever keep a metric of how many times you talk to somebody before you do a deal? What is yours, Stephanie?
So I was just telling someone this today. This is a warm lead. They called me off of a mailer. And I spoke to the guy, had a great conversation. He was supposed to send me over pictures, right? He was supposed to send me a picture and I gave him all my information in the email. He did not email me. And then I was showing someone how many times I'd called this man. I called, emailed, and texted that guy every single day for 5 straight days. And then I found his wife's phone number and I called her.
Mm-hmm.
So because I knew it was the wife's father that had passed away or something like that. So yeah, I mean, if you want something, you have to be like a dog with a bone, right? I don't know if anyone else had gone that, but I had already had a conversation with him. I knew they wanted to sell. I knew it was an amazing price. And he was supposed to do something. He was supposed to send me pictures. Like, there's a reason I was following up that heavily. But I will say I did just speak with a online source, so they get leads through Facebook ads, and they require, because it's a JV partnership with this company, they require the leads to be called, because they're warm leads again coming in, to be called 5 days every single day in a row, twice a day.
Wow.
So to try. So that's a warm lead. So again, if you've had a phone call with that person, they said they're interested in selling, it's a warm lead, right? Then you should be pretty much going after it if they're ready to go. Otherwise, you're listening to the cues of the person you're speaking to. If they say, hey, please call me back on Wednesday at this time, you call them back at Wednesday at that time. You respect that person's time, right? You don't just hound. But hey, if they're supposed to send you an email, you got to get that email, you know?
Yeah.
So basically, he is a
That's
stalker.
ground pounding.
Basically, I'm relentless. But hey, that was a big deal. That was a $65,000 deal. And if you think about that, if I had not gone after that guy, because he told me there was a ton of different people that had contacted them and given offers. And I was like, oh, I want a seat at the table. What about my offer? Come on, Jerry. So yeah,
I get it. You know. I'm the same. If someone says they wanted to sell, we've established a number, or even if we haven't gotten to that number, but they've expressed that they needed or wanted to sell, I'm going to keep after them until we, they tell me to leave them alone, or listen, I've changed my mind, or what have you. But if they've expressed that, I'm going to keep after them as well. I don't know that I keep a metric, but I will keep calling that lead, because like Stephanie said, it's a warm lead, and I know it's a warm lead. So
the answer is you call them as many times as it takes. It's kind
there
of a
we go.
question.
I love that.
There's no metric. There's no metric.
You baited us in. You got the answer.
Yeah. So yeah, and it's a pretty common question. Well, how many calls and contracts and there's so many different sets of metrics and numbers. What I will tell you is that this is a numbers game. Period. Plain and simple. It's you've got to put yourself in front of enough people. You've heard Stephanie talk about 10,000 leads. That's no joke. But the beautiful part is she gets it from Pin. She gets it whenever she needs. And so, again, we've shown you some really cool stuff. I showed you the Success Center just now. You know exactly where to find those other videos. I guess I want to sort of, I want to end the night on just one last thing, which was when you go to an appointment, because I want to lock the deal up, are there any things that you absolutely bring to you when you're going, like, so say you're going to the property, right? What are the things that you bring with you to make sure that you lock that deal up? Jenny.
Yep. So I will always bring, mine's a mental checklist, but you better believe I would take a rehab checklist, especially if I was a novice. And we've got access to that again in PIN, where you can download it, you can print it off and take it with you. You are literally walking that property and you are writing down everything. And the homeowner is watching you most likely, right? They're like, oh, I guess that does look like crap. Oh yeah, that bathroom does need to be updated. Oh yep, that pipe is leaking. Oh yeah, there's a leak in the ceiling. AC is terrible, whatever. So the checklist, and then I'm a huge fan of electronic documents, but you can also come with a hard copy of your contract. I always have my computer with me, so I usually have them sign it electronically, just for electronic verification. But those are the two most important things that I take with me when I am walking a property.
And then there's one other thing. Did you mention the authorization to release?
Yes, authorization to release.
I did not mention it. Yes.
Well, that's something that I would, so especially if you're working with someone that has a mortgage and they don't know the information. So another document that we have, and I just sort of walked you all through it as she was talking. It was, you go to the Success Center, you go to applying PIN to your business, the document library, working with motivated sellers, and then it's on page 7. We have something called an authorization to release information. The idea is that you need permission to talk to their lending institution. This is a document, you could use this one, you can create your own. The idea is that there is a document that you can do where you can now chat with the their lending, their bank. The other thing is the property inspection cheat sheet, which is this guy right here. So we've got this right inside of the Success Center. And the way that we've designed it is these are all of the things that you need to look at when you're walking a property. So if you said, hey, what do I need to look at? I would tell you, hey, go print out the property inspection cheat sheet and fill it out on your next walkthrough as much as possible. And the idea is that you're not going to know all the cost and all of that, but you need to know what to look at.
Jenny will.
Well, yes, of course, Jenny's a pro. But the idea is that if you don't know that stuff, you're going to need to be able to figure out, well, what things should I look at? I've always relied on something like this whenever I've walked through a property. I think it's indispensable. And then the other thing was, and I know that Dana, you used Contract Genie when you first started, and I know that you've maybe sort of pivoted away from that now because you've got some other, attorneys. But didn't you always bring a few of them with you? I think you mentioned that before.
I always brought 3 contracts with me.
Okay.
One for the price that the seller and I agreed on.
Mhm.
One price that I felt like I wanted it for, and one of them made a mistake. There are certain parts in the state of North Carolina where there are some folks that still do things old school. And so I'm ready for them when I come out to put pen to paper.
I love that. So yeah. So then the other piece that we have available, it's an add-on. Now, if there's something called Contract Genie, and the idea is that it is all of the it's contracts for all 50 states, plus I believe the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. But the idea is that when you first start, you got to kind of understand how contracts work. So this would be something that, like Dana said, I would have a few of them. I might even have just a couple of handfuls of blank ones just so that I could fill them out. I mean, you could do it on a paper napkin. You don't want to, but you could. You don't want to, but you could. It's just an agreement between 2 parties, right? And then someone notarizes it and all that good stuff. But the idea is that you have these contracts. I would bring some. I would bring the inspection cheat sheet. I would bring the authorization to release information. I'd bring a clipboard. I'd bring a red pen, and I would walk that property. I know that sounds whatever, geeky, nerdy, but if you're serious about it, you got to let them know that you're serious. And if you walk in with a clipboard and you're writing stuff down, they know that you're looking at what you need to look at. So,
and not only that, who you say you were over the phone with them.
Right.
You are showing up as a person you revealed yourself to be when you show up at their door.
That's right.
You're looking to buy their property.
Yeah, that's right. I love that.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. That was the perfect interruption. So it was great. Oops, I clicked the wrong one. So let me try this one. All right. So I'm going to skip through these slides real quickly because we've already talked about all of this stuff. Talked about being prepared. And I wanted to just give you one more opportunity tonight, that if you're on the call tonight for the first time, or you haven't gotten PIN yet, we talked about an appointment, when to do that. This is what it looks like. So If you are interested in PIN and you don't have it, we highly recommend that you take advantage of a special that we're running right now where you'll get a 7-day free trial. After 7 days, you can continue the subscription, but really straightforward. So it's connectedinvestors.com/PIN-software. Go there, sign up, and start enjoying some PIN. Now, there will be some limitations to the numbers of things that you can look at, but there will be no limitation to looking at properties and analyzing cards and looking at all the different bells and whistles that we offer. And so I would encourage you all to go there and, try PIN out for a little while. And then I'm gonna, before we end the call, I want you all to share with us what your biggest takeaway was.
Yes.
One of the things that we like to understand is if we've hit the mark with you all. Now, we obviously have an agenda, right? But we also want to share, with your questions. So if we shared something tonight that really hit home for you, let us know. And then while you're doing that, I'm just going to take the last couple of minutes to go through those questions and make sure that there's any that we didn't miss. I don't remember exactly what we were talking about, but I know that Jenny, someone said, what were the options that you might give a seller? So you said, oh, if I'm doing this or doing that, maybe just a quick recap on that.
Yep. So when I talk about options, I'm talking honestly about being creative and what does that look like? So of course we can all come in with a very low ball cash offer, right? Sometimes it works and sometimes it's not very appealing to the homeowner. So I like to go thinking outside of the box, knowing what their equity level is and then what that spread is right there, knowing what their existing mortgage is, which we can also find out, which is awesome. I leverage that data because if I can see that they've got a great sub-to out there, you better believe I will give them a higher offer if they will allow me to take over, existing payments on their behalf. So there's all sorts of different ways to approach it and being creative. Maybe I'll give them some money on the back end if I can, entice them that way. Do a scale type system. I will kick you back an extra $10,000, $25,000, $50,000 if I can sell it at X, Y, and Z price point once I put the property. So again, it's just being creative, working with that homeowner and making it a win-win for everybody.
I love that. I love that. That's awesome. David, great question. Would you record the walkthrough? We don't currently have a walkthrough, but it is something that I think we should be definitely adding either to one of the sessions or as a video.
Yes.
Thank you. We will definitely get something like that up on the Success Center. We won't be doing it during this.
I love that.
It's something that we should definitely add. So I'm going to make a note of that. And all of you that got PIN and are using it, I love that. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Let's see, what area can someone filter raw land and download the records? Well, what I would say is in the advanced mode, which we talk about on one of the other videos that you can go in the Success Center and watch, we talk about the advanced mode, and land is one of the filter types that you can go and look at. And I would encourage you to go in there if you either have the trial version or you currently have it, go into the advanced mode and do a search by land. It's there. And then you can look at the everything reports and all the other details that show up. How can I get on the next call? Yeah, the next call, you just need to register. You just need to register on the Success Center, and we'll be here next Tuesday. So thank you for sharing your biggest takeaways. We're going to be replaying this just as a replay on Thursday. Truth be told, you can go into the Success Center. You'll be able to watch this after tomorrow morning. So it'll be uploaded and ready for you to go. I want to thank Jenny and Dana and Stephanie for sharing your time. I know it's valuable. I really appreciate all that you share, and I'm so thankful that I have you to work with, and you share your experiences about PIN. And so thank you very much. Yeah, you're appreciated.
Thank you, Craig.
Thanks everybody for joining too.
Guys.
Yeah, awesome. All right, well, hey, everybody, you all have a fantastic rest of your Tuesday night. We will see you in a week. Have a great night, and yeah. Go out there and
Come
make
back
some
and see us.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.